So we're on to phase 3 of the move south now, which saw me leave the beautiful Bermagui harbour about 6 a.m. in the morning and then head southeast to a position that was roughly about 5 to 7 nautical miles off the coast. And it's a good spot to be because you get into the East Australian current and it really adds some pace to your passage, somewhere in the vicinity of 3 knots, and it's pretty good. My first waypoint that morning was to just off Twofold Bay, Eden. That's always a good spot to pull in if there's ever a problem, and I have that as I have a planned spot where I can go to in the event something happens to the boat, and that was my spot that I would go to. But at this particular point in time, the boat was going great. I was feeling really good, so we headed down to Green Cape. Now, Green Cape, again, the weather was really good at this particular point in time. 17 knots out of the northeast, the boat was flying, and I thought, yep, we're right to go. We're going to continue with the passage across the Tasman. So I moved down to my final waypoint opposite the mainland, which was Gaybo Island, saw that, and then we were heading out into the evening and on the passage plan south, and it was going really well. It was 321 nautical mile passage. In the end, it only took me 48 hours, which was pretty amazing, because about midway across in the Tasman, had a bit of an incident that caused me a fair amount of grief and anxiety and stress. But once I got that solved, as you'll hear later on the video, I then managed to continue my passage south past Flinders Island and down to a position just off St Helens Island, and I laid up there for a couple of hours, just had a swim, put the boat was under anchor and had to wait for a flood tide to come in before I could enter the bar at St Helens to make my way into St Helens, which it's an area that's not recommended for yachties, but with the help of Marine Rescue, I've been in there quite a few times now, and I find it quite good, and it's a good place to break the trip up as well. So this video covers that really challenging passage. So this is now leaving Bermagui and on passage to St Helens in Tasmania. There's a nice weather window of nor'easters, so I won't have to motor too much hopefully, and we're going to travel from here down off Eden and then straight across to St Helens or Flinders Island, down the top of Tassie. So here we go, that's what the morning looks like. A little bit of rolling swell, but quite nice. What a morning. Wow. I don't know whether you can see that, but there's a really beautiful rainbow over there, just off Bermagui. It started out a bit wishy-washy, wind coming from the southwest, not anticipated, but anyway, it'll die out a little bit later on today. So this is what Momentum really likes doing, kicking up her heels, doing 7.5 knots in 12 to 13 knots on a beam reach, and she's just flying down the coast now with a half-furled headsail and a full mainsail. And this is the really lovely part about heading south on a beautiful day, doing a nice boat speed. It's magic. Just past Eden, en route to Green Cape. Stylora, big sloop in front of us. She's a 44 footer, bit of a heavier boat, so we're gaining on her now. She's going to do the passage across the straits with us tonight as well. So we're just trying to establish some comms other than the mobile phones, because they'll run out in the Bass Strait. We're coming up to Green Cape now, and the boat's absolutely flying, 8+ knots now, with a 12 to 15 knot nor'easter. So it's going to be like this for the next 3 days, which is just terrific. So So there's the beautiful coastline of New South Wales leading up to Green Cape. Absolutely gorgeous. Swells more from the east now, which is good. Well, I was well and truly committed now, leaving mainland Australia in the background and venturing out into the Tasman Sea. And I had a beautiful sunset on my starboard side and a good nor'east wind astern. It was certainly crunch time, as this part of the world, crossing the Bass Strait, it doesn't suffer fools easily. I'd come this far and I'd done a lot of preparation to the boat and also to myself. I didn't really want to think about conditions that would make me turn back, but I did. And being a bit nervous just makes you plan all the better. Next stop, east coast of Tasmania. I did leave the mainland though, with a little bit of trepidation, and I really think all solo sailors feel that at some stage. It just lets you know that you're alive and it's risky. But importantly, you're living your dream and hopefully you're managing the risks. So this is the morning of the first of the crossing. Not much sleep last night. A couple of 20 minutes here and 20 minutes there. Blowing quite strong. 20 knots from the northeast. Quite whipped up seas, which gave me a bit of concern. I just wondered how the auto helm would cope with it all, seeing as it had tripped up twice yesterday, but it seems to be going fine. So I'm really quite surprised. I thought I might have to hand steer. Anyway, let's have a look at what the morning's got to offer. So there it is. Dawn just coming up. And you can see the hardest working member of the boat, auto helm. And a fair bit of whipped up seas here as well. Sort of coming across the aft quarter and really making the boat roll. So it's certainly blowing in the right direction, that's for sure. Been doing on average 9 knots all night long with just 2 reefs in the main and a handkerchief of a headsail out. That's pretty impressive. Whoa! It's getting a bit wet though, a bit choppy. So, just about to make land in Tasmania. I've chosen St Helens as the spot to come ashore because it's a nice little inlet, and I've been at sea now for 3 days. Oh, a big dolphin coming into Salo as well. Oh, they were coming in. Yeah, had some a real experience in the crossing. Probably the fastest sail I think I've ever had on momentum. But we had a real problem. The auto helm, the hard working auto helm, fried itself, and yeah, so I've been pretty much hand steering for the last 24 hours. So I've had to just, when I need to brake, I just have to stop the boat and lay a hull and just go down below and have a sleep and let her roll around in the spot until I'm ready to sort of have another crack at it. So I've got 2 hours to go now until I make landfall. Yeah, it's been a pretty exciting journey. Very fast sailing, and then obviously with the wind on our quarter and the rolling swell and the strong winds, it was just too much for the auto helmet. Just cactus. So anyway, not to worry. Have a look at this start to a beautiful day, being joined by the dolphins, so I ain't complaining. Although 24 hours of hand steering is pretty hard.
8-hour crossing from Bermagui to St Helens. That's a really fast trip. The first 24 hours was just blistering. I really couldn't believe the speed I was actually doing. But that was incredible when you've got the wind, the waves and the current all in the right direction. It really throws you out there. So, but then, as I said before, the last 24 hours after my auto helm went down, I just had to hand steer the boat, and that is incredibly labour intensive. So I'm deep water anchored at the moment on the back of Monument Rock in 25 metres of water, which is probably the deepest I've ever anchored in. I put out 45 metres of chain, and I put a tripwire out as well, trip line, just in case. But it's quite humid today, so I'm thinking a swim may be seriously in order. Just be fast. But there we are, little anchorage. John. Yes, got you, John. Yeah, sorry, my radio's down below. It's I don't have one up here, unfortunately, so easy to probably talk to you over the phone. Yep. Yep. So getting ready to cross the bar at St Helens. Marine Rescue have come out to guide us in. And they're a great bunch of people, a little bit of swell they said, nice deep water mainly throughout though, so we should be okay. It's a very treacherous bar here, probably a bit like the one at Maitland's Bay, but even smaller. And most yachts are advised not to come in here, but I've kind of found it pretty good so long as you get help. Anyway, we'll see how narrow the bar is very shortly. Here's the yellow marker that denotes the start of the bar. Rescue now. So here we start, and we'll video this because this is really interesting. Lining up behind me now. Meters of water at the entrance. fine, John. Oh, I should be right after Pelican Point here. Fantastic. Oh, okay. Thanks very much for your help. Cheers, bye. So we're 4 point, so it gets down to 2 metres here. So, 4 point, look at the water. Wow. Stay mid-channel. This is where the notorious Pelican Point where people run aground. So this is the grounding spot. And 3.7 metres below the boat. Mid-channel's looking pretty good, high tide, 4.5 metres. 4.6. So finally, I made it comfortably into St Helens. It's about a 1 hour passage up the waterway. I went on to a private mooring first, and then I moved on to a private jetty. And I had some really great help from the lovely people at St Helens, particularly the guy who owned the 70-foot aluminium cruising boat. Just by chance, he was having some electrical work done, and that's exactly what I needed, a marine electrician. How lucky. We found the culprit. It was the worm drive that moves the tiller port to starboard. It just burnt out, and you can see all the carbon. So after replacing it, we did some dockside testing, and that would get me to Hobart, thankfully. So whilst working on the boat down there in St Helens, I got a taste of some real Tasmanian weather when over 52 knots blew through. That gave me a bit of an insight into what to expect later on. But in the next episode, I'll be passaging from St Helens down the east coast of Tasmania and landing up safely in Hobart. So see you then.